Hello, this is my brief review of the Star Wars Frames hardback. This is not the uber expensive $5,000 edition, but rather the kind you can get on Amazon currently. It's still hardcover, it's still very nice. As you can see here, it comes in a huge slip box. I would say this is probably 12 or 14 inches tall and maybe 16 inches wide, and it's massive. So the top of the slip box comes off. We can see that it is embossed. It's got the sort of Star Wars title font and kind of a imperial motif here. Just kind of looks metallic even though it's cardboard. And then it says Star Wars Frames in the that's the current font for the franchise subtitles. So it comes, and on one side we see it has the original trilogy numbers, and if we spin it around, these are the prequel trilogy on this side. You can arrange them however you like, obviously. So the sides of the books are, again, Star Wars, the prequel trilogy, and the original trilogy. Now, these have some paper which protect the book inside the slipcase, and here is the prequels. And again, these books are pretty massive. I would say this is probably, well, let's get out a ruler and find out. 6, 12, yeah, so 14 inches or so by about 12 inches or so. So here's the prequel trilogy. There's a still from Revenge of the Sith on it. This is nice quality paper. I'll turn on a bit more light here. It has an introduction by Rinzler, who's been doing a lot of the making of books. So then you see an actual still here is half of one of these pages. So that makes it about 6 inches tall by about 12 or 13 wide. I mean, you can figure out the actual ratio based on the fact that these are probably, widescreen 2.35 to 1 frames. But they're nice quality frames. You can see as you get close, and maybe you can't make it out, there's a bit of a texture on the paper, which means that it doesn't really show fingerprints very well. I still wouldn't recommend, eating a bucket of fried chicken and then flipping through this. But it's not going to just pick up prints willy-nilly. Some of the choices, so apparently the big deal is that Lucas himself chose all of the frames for this personally, which he's never done for any of the books. Some of them are weird choices. So this one you may be able to see is fairly blurry. Some of them are good iconic ones, like here's one from the trailer of the Queen. Or at least it was used in the trailer. The actual binding of the book is nice. You can see cloth here, or thread rather, sewing in the different sections of the book to the spine. So we'll get through and look at some of the others. So Phantom Menace was shot on film. The other two prequels were shot digitally and therefore have slightly different image quality than the one shot on film. See if I can find one. So here we go to Attack of the Clones. There's much less of a grainy quality because it's not ever been on film. I don't see, other people have talked about there being a kind of painterly quality to it. I don't see that. It's just really crystal clear imagery. So it is sort of interesting to notice that in the other two. So it is a much clearer image. Here's the end of, not the end of Attack of the Clones, midway through Attack of the Clones. Anakin's gonna go crazy. Droids. But, so this is a pretty fun book if you really want to look in detail, just kind of relive the saga in pictures. But as I said, some of the photos are a little bit odd. That's a good choice there. In that they're fairly blurred. For example, this one. is of the giant ship from the beginning of the third movie crashing onto Coruscant. And yes, it captures a part of the movie, but it's also not very interesting to look at least to me. It's mostly blur. And there's a few others like that, especially as you get into the original trilogy. Now this one's sort of interesting because it does sort of show the difference between film and digital. I mean, even in a blur, this is a very clear lightsaber, much clearer than the blurs I find in the other films. But it's great if you want, like the old storybooks, you want to flip through and look at pictures and pick up details that you can't get in a moving picture, but you can get through looking at still. That's a nice one of Mustafar. But again, so the prequels are interesting in that they have that twofold style of filming. So that's the prequel book, and on the back here we have Maul and Sidious. And this actually just came off the back of the package, which was shrink wrapped, and I kept it. So let's take a look at the original trilogy book, which I imagine many of you are more interested in. So one thing you may notice right off the bat is that it's darker. And I find this to be generally true of the images inside it. They're not as well lit as the ones in the prequel, and I'm not really sure why that is. But like the others, it's the same high-quality construction. This one has an introduction by Guillermo del Toro. Not a huge introduction, but, a nice thing. So here we have some images from Star Wars, and I just had the box flip over. And you can see already, maybe, that it's a much dimmer set of images. And it is a dark scene here. But even on the lighter images, it's not as brightly lit. And again, as we get in close, you can see the grain here, which is authentic to the source material. So here we have some shots. I believe this was in the special edition only, so these are from the special editions, not the original trilogy, which apparently doesn't exist in print form, or who knows anymore. But again, some great pictures. This one I remember from the original soundtrack album. And this is really triggering a lot of nostalgia for me. This is definitely special edition, you can see. Because I, as a kid, looked at the storybooks constantly. And again, yeah, special edition photos. So I suppose that means we have Jabba in here. I didn't think to look for that. Yeah, so there's Jabba. So this is the Redux special edition from 2004, not the original 97, which had an earlier and less consistent Jabba model, consistent with the others. So there are some lines on the paper itself, I don't know if you can see those, that probably results from the actual process of printing. I don't know, they're not too distracting, but they are there. There's a great shot. I think this got turned into a painting by Jerry Vanderstelt. So I'm just, again, flipping through some of the Star Wars shots. And as we get into the others in the... Here's Empire. In the trilogy, you see very similar types of things. They're all shot on film. Obviously, the color palette is different in the different films. Empire tends to be more blue. As far as whether or not this has the blue of the DVDs and Blu-rays, because people have often said that those are too blue, I couldn't say. I know Empire is sort of blue on Hoth anyway. But again, great details here. Oh, that's a great one. It's just something you can kind of open up and take your time absorbing over the course of several hours. There's a nice Facebook picture for you. This does appear to be that blue-green, actually, now that I look at it. I wonder if it's from a print that got color corrected badly or something, because he's kind of that awkward, really bright blue-green. One of the neat things here is in some of the behind-the-scenes photos, you can see this is actually made out of salt and baking soda on a table, or a piece of glass, maybe. I'm not finding them now, but I ran through on the first one a few pictures that were just essentially a giant blur, but I don't see them now. I forget how many actual frames there are from each movie in this. I'm sure it says somewhere on the packaging, gives us a clue. But pretty exhaustive and a great way to just kind of enjoy the films again without watching them. There's a neat one. And unless you paused a lot, some of these are things you probably haven't actually seen before. So if you're interested in Star Wars, this is well worth the money. I believe you can get it for under $100 on Amazon right now. The retail is $150. Oh, that looks terrible. The retail is $150, but as I said, I think you can get it for cheaper than that, either through a used seller or through Amazon itself will often have discounts. And if you're a big fan of Star Wars, this is probably worth it. Anyway, thanks for looking. And if you post questions in the comments and I can answer them, I will. See you next time.